Good morning and a happy Friday to you. That's a TGIF, and here we are once again with Walk the Web, and I'm Dr. Aaron Dishno, bringing you basically 3D internet, and it's kind of a WordPress type program in the concept, but yet it's basically designed for games instead of websites. It's 3D websites using a game engine. We use Babylon behind the scenes and basically put a layer on top of that makes it easy to work with Babylon and create plugins and different pieces so that we can all create our modules and put them all together to create different types of scenes and combinations that'll give us games, 3D internet, basically all kinds of cool stuff. So jumping right back in, we're playing around with some shadows yesterday and I made some progress, so I just wanted to show you where we are on that and that I did get it working. So let me show you a couple things here and we'll get started in that area. Okay. For starters, most important thing that I realized was that many times I'm looking when I was working on it earlier, I would look at this and I'd go, gosh, there is no shadow. And notice how on this default ground, for some reason, when we're not looking directly into the sunlight, we didn't see a shadow. And here's what threw me off yesterday. When I'm on this side of things and I look at it, there are no shadows. It didn't even generate them. Okay? But as soon as I walk over here, the shadows are generated and they go this direction. Now, for some reason that only happens on the extended ground, because as I was testing things out, so there was no changes to the code. It was strictly what I was trying to see and how. Because if I go to any other scene, for example, the mini golf scene, and when I walk around here, notice when I'm looking into the sun, you can see the flag right there, and it's basically right there is its shadow, and the shadow itself does move with the flag. So that's all working. But when I turn away, it still works on top of the golf area there, but it's not working out here on the extended ground. So the flag disappears if you're not looking directly into the sun. So it is just an error with that particular part. So if I walk over here, notice the ground. We have my full avatar and it doesn't matter which direction I'm facing. And also it goes across both of these textures of what I have here. So it's happening on the sidewalk area next to the scene, and it's happening on this area, but I can turn all the way around and and the shadow's there the whole time. So it turns out that was just an issue with the default the extended ground. Not sure why. It could be I played around with the coloring of it and tried to see what I could do with that, but I'm not finding it. So, but the good news is we do have shadows working in all directions. And here's another cool part. I did double check this and fix some things. So now if I go from like highest quality to a lesser quality, notice it took on the shadows. They're still there, but they're a little bit fuzzier. Then there's a little bit change there, but not much between those two levels. And then if I go to the lowest level, because they're already loaded, it's there. But if I was to refresh this page, we're actually turning shadows off. When something's already in the shadow generator, basically I leave it there when you make the adjustment and you change. But if they're not there and it's not defined to be part of the shadow process yet, then I don't add them. So notice there's no shadows here. Oh, there's very little. It's a very low quality shadow, and that's what we're getting. And now, including, notice it's, if you could see really clear, it's actually a very low grade shadow, but you can see the shadows. So they're still there. If somebody has a slow machine, that'd probably be a good section for you. But notice when I go enhanced, how much more quality they get. This one also uses the same quality, but allows other things to cast shadows. And then this one is the ultimate, where yes, we are in basically 4K shadow mode. And you can see we really make a difference on what we're doing. Oh, if I can quit. I gotta learn to not select that afterwards, or maybe after you change the setting that it loses focus, because as I was walking around it was actually changing shadow mode. Okay, but the good news is we have shadows and they are working, so great, yay. Okay, now with that part in place though, one of the things is that, okay, we don't need that and that to open anymore. One of the things that I ran across also is because we did that, we no longer need certain functions. No, it's not get move vector. It would be, there's a function for adding the shadows. And I basically am not using it anymore. Shadows dispose. Okay, that's all part of the dispose thing. That's all fine. Change shadow, that's the one we're still using. That's all good. Set shadow is the one we're still using also. And then down here, list community shadows, oh, that's all fine. Come on. Okay, here we go. This is the part. We have a couple functions. One of them is add shadows to shadow map. Well, now that we're doing a bunch of other stuff, this one may be not needed. And then on top of that, we may still also have a couple other things here. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so just checking. Okay, so this process is for adding shadow maps to other objects and stuff. Well, because of the way it does things now, we're not even using this anymore. We do not need it because the second you say that it receives shadows, it doesn't matter which shadow map you create, it still will generate the shadows. So for now, I'm going to phase it out by trying, oh, these are all remarked out already. Okay, I think we already have it out of play. Everything seems to be working. That one's already remarked out, so's that one. This has basically been removed from everywhere. So we're going to do a couple more checks, and then I'm going to remove this function from the code. There's a couple other things where it only worked in browsing mode, and I enabled it to work in browsing and in the admin mode, so that like the fog in the distance. I was disabling fog when you were there, when you're in the distance, so that it would do that. Also played around with, here's why we have different fog settings, by the way. If I take this small island over here, and basically there's water underneath it, and when I go walking, come on. Okay, get my avatar in here. He's waiting until the building builds. It's off to my right. There it goes. And now I can walk. And let's see. Come on, build my avatar. Or am I in a first-person view? I don't think I am. I'm in a scene camera. I should really be able to see this. Go follow camera. Okay, there he goes. Everything's built finally. Okay, so now as I'm walking and we run into water, one of the things I do with the fog is this. Right now the fog is in the distance. So you get a kind of fuzzy line on the horizon, and that's about it. When I start walking into the water and it starts going down and deeper, when my head goes under, one of the things I was playing around with is, notice, can you see it? Let me see if I can go a little deeper. I'm just trying to check and see. There's some settings for the fog, and what I like doing is I like making it where the okay, I'll have to play around with that still. There's a setting here, and what it does is it sets the fog color and fog layer, and it's based on if you're underwater. So, for example, if I'm here, I want to make it kind of a blue color, blue-green. So blue, greenish color. And I try to go to a higher fog density. Let me make that even more extreme just so we can see if it's actually working. Oh, that's not even where it's happening. Hang on. It would be... Oh yeah, it is the avatar position. Okay. I could set up a different scene so we don't have to load so much every single time, but let's... Or I know another thing I can do. If I come over here... If I come over here and I basically... let's get up on the shoreline. Start... Man, I'm falling down the mountain. That's funny. Sliding right down the hill. Okay, I'm going to start here, facing this way, and I'm going to say Options, Set Starting Position, Use Current. Now, I shouldn't have to load everything in the building back there, and it should load a little bit faster, because I'm farther away from the building. Okay, so... And my direction wasn't the one I saved. Oh, there it is. Okay. It's loading. Okay, and where's my avatar? He's coming in. Oh, it's funny I'm sliding. How funny. I guess it detected the new object, and it's actually sliding downhill a little bit. Okay, so now when I walk over here, what I'm doing is going underwater. And when I go underwater... What I'm trying to do is... Oh, that's funny. It still did not do it right. Okay, that's something worth playing around with. What I'm working on is setting it up so that basically it fogs in with like a bluish color. That way when you're underwater, it feels different than when you're out and about. You can't see as far, you know, everything else. And I was using the fog to do that. But for some reason, our fog didn't come on here. That's the start render, that's the fog density, and the fog color. Now we should be good on those items. I don't see any reason that they wouldn't work. Okay, one thing at a time. We were still playing around with some of the shadows. I just wanted to show you that since we were getting there. But, okay. The other part was the position. His head is about 16 high, where... it's not quite that high, but we'll figure out that number. Basically, the feet is where it measures how deep you are underwater, and so until the head goes underwater, it kind of looks weird if you fog in when he's still above the water level. I need to double check the camera position, and then just if the camera goes underwater, then basically you look like you're underwater. That would probably be a more realistic approach at doing that. So in this section, what I need to do is I need to check which camera you're using, then what, if that camera is below 0 on the Y value and it's water, then basically, yeah. Okay, you get the general picture. Okay, so getting back to the other part here, we have add shadow to maps. There was one thing I wanted to double check, and that is I have some places where... Let's see, I'm trying to think of how I use shadows in different places. I think I'm okay, because the other shadow maps are the other shadows that I'm generating them on the fly when I need them, and I'm using add to shadowcaster and receive shadows if it's able to receive shadows. I did some changes in the way the code worked there, and so now that particular thing isn't needed anymore. So let's get rid of... I should, before I delete it completely, I keep track of everything that I do, and fix shadow generation. Let's put this one out here and call it, I'll cancel that. I have fixed shadow generation. So the shadow after has been replaced with Babylon engine functions. Unnecessary functions, there it is. This, and I've got one more that'll be thrown in there. Just want to get the name of the function before I delete it. Add shadow to shadow maps is no longer needed here. And the other one is add shadow to mold. Well, before I do that, let's finish tearing it out of here. Shadow set equals 1. We won't even need that if statement because, oh, person said we're not even using this function. It's another one of those that I've already made obsolete. This whole section here is no longer needed. It was saying if rebuild and if shape is not image, then do this function, and that is gone. That's on the set new mold. Yikes. Okay, so we get rid of that one, that one. Yeah, I think I got rid of all 4 of these. Okay, so shadow map. Oh, there's another one. And this is all gone now. We eliminated the need to recheck this once again. That was in the... Oh, wait a minute. Back that up a second. I don't need this line. But I'm going to want something here. Render list. Whenever I do this, this is the CSG stuff, or like I cut something out of another object. And if I don't do the shadows again, then what'll happen is the... Well, actually, it is the same end result. Okay, so receive shadows on the end product is fine, and water reflection, those are fine. Mold receive shadows, and this I changed to, there's a different function. It's not my function, it is a... It is, I know where it is. Let's go up here. I've got a new function for this. Instead of add shadow mold, we now just do, where'd it go? Since the shadows are working, shadows, shadow mat, render list push, we can do it that way, or there's, oh man, I just looked it up yesterday too. Let me find it real quick. There was a different function that lets you... Okay. Okay, the other iframes. One of the important ones, and the one that I may or may not be able to get rid of, is when you go to the website, of course, we have Google Analytics running. And because we already opened up the web page, Google Analytics already did its thing on the master page. But if for every time you're walking around and it renders another part of somebody else's building, for example, like if you put your building in my site and it has an extreme zone, a far zone, and then a near zone for loading different objects, I actually trigger those using an iframe to tell it open up the page and make Google Analytics fire off on each one of those levels. I know Google Analytics has some PHP code that would allow it to do it. The only problem was I never got it to work. I played around with it, I put it in code, I tried pulling it, but I think what it was doing is was detecting that it was within the same page that I'm currently running, and I could not get it to trigger another event to actually fire off a page view. So by using an iframe, I was able to do a page view. Now, the other items I already know. I'm doing a lot of form submittals, just saving during the admin. It's not even used when somebody's just browsing the site. It's only on the admin side. I use some for being able to save data from the active scene. I put it into a form and submit it on an iframe so that it writes it to the database and stuff. But I already know we can do that stuff through JSON. We can do calls that send the data right into something. We can also do we could do Ajax, partial page post. There's a number of ways that we can do those without making them. In fact, you can do HTTP, XML requests, and we can. So there's ways we can do those and make the calls that actually save things outside of there, and they're all asynchronous anyway. So that I know we can do the form submittals, but I knew the file uploads was the one, and then the other one is about the Google Analytics. So if you want to play around, here's the problem. If I take a web page, just create an index HTML page or whatever you want to do, put the code on there to do Google Analytics so that it tracks that page. But what I need to do is on demand say from JavaScript, fire off to save another page view someplace else. And that's where I was opening on the fly an iframe that's dynamically generated. It dynamically generates an iframe, opens up the page, collects the page view by just running the page to go to that particular property, and then just destroying it afterwards. So that's kind of what I was doing for the, for Google Analytics, so that it would trigger an actual page view in the analytics. So if we can defeat that one, I think we can get rid of all of them. Well, the problem is I don't want to remove Google Analytics because, first of all, the amount of data we're talking about, if you actually try to log it and give them their own page view information, is going to be astronomical. I mean, it's, every time somebody walks forward and it opens something, it's going to end up, triggering it. So I'd rather that go to some place that's some big host of data of that type, which is browsing. Because if you take a building, let's say a 3D store, and now you drop it into 20 different scenes, each one of those scenes can trigger to show you if it loaded at a distance, if it loaded up close, or if the person actually went inside it. And that's why I did 3 layers of loading, is specifically based around being able to give them some type of analytics saying that their place was seen from the outside. Hey, maybe they didn't have attractive window decoration and so nobody walked inside. But that's the kind of information they can get from it, and they would know each scene that it was in that triggered that page view. So that kind of is an important matrix, especially if businesses start using it for 3D stores. That's going to be an important piece. I get you. And even the Google Analytics is just one of many, but I think they're all going to work about the same way. The only reason I did Google Analytics, it's free, and when I have it set up, I had it set up, so I use it, and that's just one of the beasts that I have. So there's other options, but as for analytics, like I said, something in a free category, I can't pass that up. But we just need a way of tracking matrix. It's just about that, so people can find out where they're being seen and how. So that one's, like I said, that may be the catch of where we still use it. That's the only one that's being used from the actual browser side, when somebody just goes to view a site and they're not admin and they don't log in as admin or try to change the way the site works. So that's pretty much there. There's a couple forms that may go from there, but we can definitely phase those out altogether using some of these other methods. But I hope that gives you an idea. I'm with you about getting rid of the iframes. I have no problem with doing that. It's kind of old technology. Didn't like doing it in the first place. It was just something that I tested a number of different ways. And here's the other issue. This code, as of Babylon, works in all browsers that are HTML5, pretty much. You have to have Canvas, you have to have, certain things to make it work. The thing about it is with this stuff, I just want to make sure it's a method that works in all those browsers. And anytime I check on things, it says, well, it works in this one, this one, this one, but not this one. And so I just want to make sure that it's going to work in all HTML5 browsers before we completely phase it out. Because I don't want to cut off anybody that could be using it, especially when you start getting into, well, devices tend to be better than most for what technology they accept. For a good example, I wouldn't use Flash, because Flash doesn't work on all browsers. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm just making sure I've covered. Okay, so this particular thing, I'm going to make sure. This one right here was still kind of in use. I'm not using it. It's already marked out. But I want to know that if I want to replace it with something, that would be what I'm going to replace it with, just so that I have something in if I go looking for it here. All I have to do is push the mold into the shadow map, and that works. So I know what it is. There's certain scenes that have more than one light source, and I know we can do that, but I may have to create a second or third or fourth or whatever shadow map when I do them. Yeah, I've already cut out all Flash things years ago because it never worked in some places. There's some places like a good doesn't work on iPhones, for example. So yeah, I've basically tried to keep away from that kind of stuff. Okay, so we got rid of that name there, and we got rid of it here. Now this one, on the other hand, this one may still have a lot of references. Yeah, and they're still being added because I do create some different shadow maps. That's going to be a little bit of stuff here. Let's see, this one, where's this happening? I think I already fixed this one if it's the one I think it is. Oh, this is the avatar. Okay, so the avatar already has shadows, and they're already happening on the ground. That one isn't needed. We took care of it with this statement right here, get shadow map, push that. Okay. So that's that one. What's this stuff? 3 times in here, and it's add mold light bulb. Okay, so when we add a light, we also have a shadow map of the shadows generated by that light. So that's a different beast, and I think I'm going to leave that function for that. Thanks. Well, I tell you what, I did Visual Studio for a couple decades, and I'm still not against Visual Studio, don't get me wrong, but when I left the county a couple years ago, I decided that when I'm working on this kind of stuff, I just wanted to make sure I was using stuff that was free, which Visual Studio, I know it went free, and it's available now and everything else, but I just wanted to show them that I'm not doing anything special other than JavaScript. I'm not doing, JavaScript and PHP and MySQL. There's no bells and whistles. There's no hidden things behind the scene. I completely went transparent with it. I threw it out there as open source, just to show you that this is what I'm creating. This is what I'm working with and everything. I'm not trying to use some tools that do things for me. The other part is I also don't like tools that try to add code for you because they tend to write more than you need. They try to be global, and as soon as they do that, they tend to write more code than what you actually need in your objects. So there's some things like that. But yeah, so it's kind of cool getting all the different pieces in place here, and yeah, just making it work. So thanks on that one for sure. And we're getting there. Okay, so this one I'm not going to phase out. By the way, your name is kind of cool. And I could have said that years ago. I did that too, I believe, at some point in time. Now, if I can't find something for free, I look a little harder. But even then, I know. Some things you can't find. That's true. Okay, so this function, all we're doing in here right now is we are adding it. Add shadow caster. That's the name of the word I was trying to think of earlier, because it also allows you to get the child objects underneath it and add them that way. So there's a little bit of stuff here. Then I already know that there's going to be some other pieces that I want to do. Well, first of all, shadow map is okay. We're passing in its own shadow map. No problem. Okay, so I can take that off, and that is no longer a concern of mine. That works the same way, and that's good. Okay, so we cleaned up that a little bit, but that code is going to remain because we have things like if we have a light and it generates shadows based on a particular light. I did it in another scene, not on this server, but I was doing something like a street light, and it casted shadows of the actual street light fixture around it, and it would actually generate those onto the ground near it. So kind of cool stuff. Kind of cool. Okay, and also another thing to note is Babylon does say that you can use 4 light sources for any one for generating shadows. There are ways to set it higher, but by default it will allow up to 4 different light sources. So it's good to know, good to have in there. I only eliminated 1. I thought I was going to unnecessary function. Change it to function instead of functions. Apply. Okay. Got rid of that. This is my little notes, by the way. It's my release notes for every time I do a new release of the product. This tells me, this is how I track every time I change something or update something and make it work. Then I make my notes in here, the title and then the description of the item. That way, when I do the release notes, you can actually see a listing of everything that has improved since the last time. It's a good way to get it. Okay, I will re-invoke that one because if we do that by name, then we should be able to remove the from Shadowcaster. We should be able to remove molds from the Shadowcaster. That's actually a good thing. Then we don't end up with a bunch of pieces left in here that we're no longer using. Okay, select building. Mini golf. Okay. I'm multitasking. Well, I'm just glad to see that we do get shadows on everything, even when you're not in the sunspot, right? Okay, so what's next? That was the part I was working on this week, and that was the thing that I didn't get closed up on time, and I was kind of digging through stuff and seeing what else I needed to do. That was the part that I was trying to do. Hey, by the way you join in here and everything else, I do want to make you a VIP. Welcome to the club. There you go. And so we're just going through and doing some of these different pieces. I've done so much cleanup. I've done so many parts. I want to see, what else was I working on? I already know that I'm able to load a certain animation by the time I walk up on something. So I know that piece is in place. Yeah. Man. Don't tell me that. Well, first of all, I know that there's errors in the code and things that need to be fixed. Just saying. That kind of stuff just sits around here, and I know that it exists and I need to fix them. But so I know there's parts of that are in that category that could do. So let me see where else I want to I'm just trying to think of which pieces I'm going to do for this next release and finish them out here. You know what? The other day when I was doing something, I think I wasn't able to say always. Right. You know it though. You know it. It's code. If you get a piece of code that's working perfect and everything else, something will change under the scenes, like the browser will update, or Windows will update, or Linux will update, or something will update, and it's almost guaranteed that it'll break your code at some point in time. And so it's constantly something to fix and go. Or even like this fix over here breaks this piece over here. So I know that kind of stuff has happened. One of the ones I went to do the other day and it threw some weird error was when I took a box and, oh, here it is. Okay, what happened here? I'm going to track this down. We're going to find out where that came from. I knew when I was editing something in the animations it was doing something weird. So let's find out. 4644 in the admin file. And let's go there. 4644 is the call to here. Response animations. Oh, this is what, yeah, okay. This is one of the ones I was working on. Nice, yeah, right. What it is when I first started working on this project, and I would create something, one of the things I had the hardest time, I would sit there and I'd line up something and everything looked perfect and stuff, and all of a sudden I'd let go and I go to walk around it, and it turns out I'm like dimensionally challenged, and it was completely out of place. And so what I did was I took red lines up, green this way, and blue this way, and I added them to anything that you're editing so that basically you can see the edges of the thing you're trying to move around. For example, here it's here and there and whatever it is. And if I click on any object in the scene, okay, like let's first get out of this so we're not editing that anymore. If I click on this, for example, then basically you can see here's the edges. You can also tell because of the red that it's already on the ground. And when I didn't do that, I really couldn't see if I was on the ground or if I was just hovering above it. So these lines actually came in very handy. Now also in your quick editor, you can turn them off or on. So you can be editing this object without them in the way, which also comes in handy if you're editing something very small. The lines get in the way and they kind of interfere with what you're looking at. So you can turn them off and on as you're editing to give you an idea of perspective of where things are and how they line up against other things. Just like right now, notice how the second line, the blue line or even green line down here on the bottom, they're like almost faded. If I go even a fraction lower, see it disappears into the ground, I know I'm right at the ground. Yeah, so it ends up being really helpful, and it helps a lot with lining up. So yes, definitely. But it's also good, like I said, if I'm trying to line up something that's real small into the scene, it actually helps to be able to turn off the lines, get them out of the way, align, and put it right where I need it to, or see what it looks like without the lines in the way. So it has best of both worlds on that. Okay, and as you can see, we kicked up an error, and I wanted to find out what's going on with this one. This was something that I started working on the other day, and I'm glad I noticed it, because what happens is we are editing an action zone, and it's a load action zone, and this is one we just created, so it's not complete yet, and that's why it's showing. Oh, that's interesting. The shading comes in when I walk into it and disappears when I walk outside of it. That's kind of funny. Huh, okay. So basically we're popping an error, and it's this part. I created a list of all the animations that you have available to your avatar, and I've you can click on one of them and say add animation. And every time you walk into the zone or any other avatar in your scene, so even under multi-user, if they walk into that section, then it'll automatically load that animation to this user. So in my case, when I walk anywhere near this golf club or this golf course, I need it to have a putt animation in the queue so that I can call it on demand. Well, basically the only way to do that is to be able to load it as you go through this and you're in this section, and then I want to make it unload when you walk away. So I'm kind of controlling, instead of just here's your avatar and what animations do you want on it, I'm saying on demand when you walk in this area, you're going to trigger a new animation. And in this case, the other day we walked through and we got it to load the animation. And this particular piece right here does have one animation loaded, which is the golf putt right here. It's this WTW golf putt. Now, because it's part of that particular thing, when I added it, I do not have a list over here showing me which ones are already added, and that's the part I'm doing. So when you first open this action zone, it needs to be able to tell you that we do have a particular zone that is, let me see, it is action zone animations, and in this case, we have two different action zone IDs that are triggering this particular animation, this animation right here. And it just ties the action zone with the animation ID. That's all that's doing. And in our case, I believe, I don't know which one of these two it is. I think I added in another scene just to see it work and make sure it worked from wherever I'm at. But that's fine. We're not concerned with if it's loaded in a different zone right now or a different scene. I just want to see it come up on a list when I go into this part. And what I was able to test is if I take this here and look for the action zone by its ID, I can tell that I'm getting the data in here. Let me see. I'm just gonna grab this whole thing, copy that, and that will give me it on the scene. Okay, so what we have, I'm already starting in the scene, I know. So it's already triggered, it's already loaded, but that's not the part I'm working on, so I'm fine with that right now. If I edit this building and edit the action zones, I can select the zone I already created, load animations, and that's the path that I'm going to. So I'm going to open that in another browser. There and there. And what I see here is avatar animation ID is right there, requires login, load priority, and everything else. So this is in a group called Action Zones. And that's that. And then it's in avatar animations. Right here is the group that it's there. So I should be able to say, this is where I messed it up. Action zones, level 0, animation length. I should be hitting this here, and then I should be getting this. Oh, I didn't fix this part. That's where our issue is. I fixed one of them and I missed that one, and that means I probably missed avatar animations. I need it there, there, oops, and that should give us something. Let's find out. Reload the page and give it a shot. Okay, and to test that out, let's find out edit action zones and go back to our load zone. And it didn't error this time, which is a good sign. And okay, where's my list? Well, it didn't error. That's a good starting point. But why do we not have a list? Well, let's find out. Next best thing. I want to see this length. Because select to add showed up. Length is greater than 0 because select to add showed up. Yeah, select. Wait a minute, select add. That's not in the right place. Nah, I don't think it did. Okay, let's find out real quick. And almost afternoon. Yeah, yes. Oops. Sometimes after typing in the chat, I leave the cursor there. Start typing in what I think is on this scene or vice versa. Okay, let's do that part and see what the length is. It should be greater than 0 because we have one record. And we're going to find out if it's just hidden or if it's actually not there. We could have looked through the inspector of the page and it would have told me also. Building, edit actions, load, and we have length equals 1. Okay, so we know we have an object there. And just out of curiosity then, let's click right on there. And select add, select ID. Oh, that's all the avatar IDs. That's all the next section. Animations is blank. AZ avatar animations. AZ avatar animations value. Oh, that's why. Inner HTML would make a better choice than slapping it down as a value. Okay, and I don't even know why I typed that to begin with. But there we are, inner HTML. Let's see if that gives us what we expect now. I'm kind of thinking we're in the right area. So how's everybody doing today on this Friday? I'm ready for a weekend. How about you guys? Okay, edit building, edit actions, and load animations. Length equals 1, and did we get our 1 in here? Okay, there we go. We got our 1 item, and we have a delete button next to it. Select to add is going to now say, instead of that, it'll be, it's added animations. I'm not worried about the I'm not worried about the color scheme and things like that because I just decorate the styles later on. It's mostly about making sure that it's giving me the data that I need and the functionality that I need. I can always change the color of a button or do something else with it later on. In this particular case, it's showing these. I would make them slightly indented, but left justified. I'd make them a color that we can see, like a white or something, to show that they're there. If you see, the delete button does have some type of thing in case you want to get rid of it. And right now we haven't created that particular functionality yet. So delete AZ avatar animation, and that is right there. So let's see, did I create the function for it? I don't think I did. think I named it even and didn't put it anywhere. Let's find out. Find in files. And no, I didn't. Okay, so we have this, and we have the avatar animation ID. Is that the proper piece? The true key field would not be avatar animation ID because that just tells us this. We already know this. Well, I guess I'm not allowing duplicates anyway. I can find it by those two values, which we already have. Or I can pass this value and we're getting rid of the actual one you're looking at. That makes a little bit more sense to me. So action zone animation ID. I don't think I passed that. Oh, I know why. Because that's when... Oh, actually, that's fine. Action zone animation ID. Let's go ahead and put that into the thing it's doing here because we have avatar animation ID. And we're already in the action zone ID. So we already know the action zone ID right there. But if I add one more field to this file, which is action zone PHP in the connect folder. So right up here, connect action zone PHP, and in this section right here, where we grab these avatar animation ID. Oh, it is there. Oh wait, that's not the right one. We want to add one more field. We're getting everything from the action zone. That's not it. Oh yeah, everything from the action zone. So the action zone field is where that piece is coming from. Let's add it right here. And that one, as I said, was called Action Zone Animation ID. Action Zone Animation ID, we make that twice there. That puts it in this area, and basically it'll now be a part of that whole thing. And just to do it, there are 3 different action zone pieces here that can pull action zones to what we're doing. So it would make perfect sense to add them to all 3 so that they're consistent. Then we're always getting the same object back with all 3 of those fields in it. Okay, let's get down here. Action zone 2, here it is. And we just put that right there and we're good to go. Now we have those in there. We can use this action zone animation ID in our other code here. It's going to be right here. I want it to be this field. And that way we can use this. Okay, so create a new function. And like I always do, just copy and paste something near it. That way they all look the same at the end. And come over here. And first we have the delete animation, the function name, and we'll put it there too. And then the variable that we're bringing into it is this, which I want to be able to use. Put a Z so that we know it's a local variable. And we're good to go with that piece. Okay, and then now we do the thing that we're going to get rid of in the long run. We're going to do a quick iframe page and save this value. Don't worry, I'll get rid of all these at one time. I know. We take the heat for doing the iframes, but there's a couple pieces that I haven't solved how to do without it. Well, Actually, GLN2 took care of one of them for me, showed me how we can do an upload of a file without using an iframe. And I believe that we can implement that into here and replace that functionality. The other one is being able to trigger off a page view from Google Analytics from within our code when we already have a page view for the page we actually opened. Because as you're walking, you're triggering page views of what buildings and things that you see in your scene. We need them to be able to track those as page views. Currently, I dynamically create an iframe, open a page that fires off the page view. That way I can just sit there and watch it happen as I walk around. And that did work. So if we can figure out a different way to do it, I'll get rid of the iframes. I like the suggestion, and kind of when I first started it, I wanted to get rid of the iframes too. So it doesn't hurt me at all if we can get rid of the iframes. That'd be great. I'm all for it. So this one here, we're going to pass this value, and I think I'm going to actually back that up. I'm going to leave the action zone ID in here because that is a certain value, and I want to make sure we're getting that value just to double check, like a cross-reference. So if somebody tries to throw one of these in without that, then they're not going to get the site to crash, basically. I don't want it to be able to be easy to interfere with our data. So this part here, we're going to create a field for that, and this is going to be delete is the avatar animation. Okay, now we go set this up in our iframes page. So go to here, and it's part of action zones. Okay, starting out with, we need something that's about that size. I'll see how we have load zone IDs and stuff. It's going to be about that same size. We'll just put it right there. And it's going to be, I already had the name over here, so I'm going to be consistent and copy and paste it so we don't end up with a error like that. It's easier to click it here. And go there. And there. Okay, the next thing is we need a button. So I'll take that, copy and paste it, and get the name of our button. Is that. And we're still in action zones, so everything else pans out. It's going to be there, there, and there. And of course that's going to be delete. There we go. That kind of says what it needs to say. So now this will tell it to run our code up here. Case this. Okay, and then of course after it does this process, here's where it jumps back into the code and gives us our results, because these things obviously are done in a different thread altogether. Different web page makes it a different thread. So that's kind of an advantage of doing an iframe at this point. But like I said, I'm all for getting rid of them, so don't get me wrong on that part. We will do something with that at a point in time. And now I'm going to create a function on the other page, and it's going to be update action zone animation. We want it to be, because we didn't tell that one to, well, avatar animation. Okay, so we're just going to say delete. Delete action zone avatar animation. That's a mouthful. And we put, where did ID go? It is right there, action zone animation ID. And we'll pass that value there. And so now that's the property we're going to do. I want to create it right near where we did this one. So find that in the code. There's our actual function. It's going to be so similar that I'm going to take a copy of this function, copy that, and use it to create our new one. And this part, first of all, it's going to be delete instead of update. And then the other part is we're going to get this name in here. And that'll go right there. And now here's where this particular one I had to check to see if it already exists, and then I was deciding if it's going to be an update or whatever it's going to do. Now we're not doing any of that. The only thing I need is an update statement, and that's going to cut it right there. That lines out. And here we go. Action zone animation ID is passed in. It goes there. And I'm also going to say, and action zone ID equals this one. Like I said, even though we only need one value to actually take it out of there, making sure they did the 2-value combo makes it less likely that somebody's going to go to the trouble and try to hack that or do anything with it. I'm leaving this around it because I want to be able to remind myself that I'm going to add some security where not everybody can walk in here and use this code. It's only going to be certain levels of updatability, and I'll get back to that shortly. And this is delete equals now. Delete user ID. We'll set that delete equals 1, and delete user ID equals, and we have that right here. Like I said, any chance I get where I can copy and paste a value instead of typing it, it's one less chance that I'll mistype something. Okay, so that gets this whole piece in place and brings us right up on lunchtime. Let's test this out, make sure we can delete something, and then we're going to go ahead and then we'll call it a day. Let me refresh this page and see if we can delete that object. When we click delete, I want to see it disappear out of the database. That doesn't mean we actually remove it from that list just yet. I'll still have to do that piece. So in here, we have 2 items here. One of them is going to become deleted when I do this. So edit the building, edit the action zone, load our action zone that we want to edit. And finally, down here, click delete. I didn't see any errors. That's a good sign. And let's find out if I refresh this. Yes, there it is. It deleted the particular object and it's no longer in its place. So what I would do after that process is, when this all completes, I can call another action after the fact, which is right here. And what I would call is we have a process right here that just loads those load AZ animations list. So I just want to call that function from here, and it'll redo our list for us. So it doesn't get too much easier than that. So from right here, we're going to go parent.WalkTheWeb.this function. Now it's going to automatically update that and give us the new list of whatever happens, and that happens after the fact, after it deletes it. So to test that out, I'm going to set this back to 0, nothing, and null. Apply, and get that back to null. Used to be able to take and hold down Control-0 and it'd go to null for you, and doesn't seem to be working for me, so that's the way I do it now. Okay, so we have that animation back in the list. And here we go. Building, edit actions. Here's that. And if I click delete on this, there it goes. It's gone. Nice. Yay. Woo, the crowd goes wild. And if I put it back in here, there it is. Add animation. And oh, I didn't tell it to refresh that one after it gets loaded. Okay, that's an easy step because I have save avatar animation, and we can just take out the break, and now both of these will do that function when it's completed, which loads up the list based off of what's in the database. Easy enough. Okay, so refresh it one more time. Let's delete it and add it again. It's a good way to do it. So, edit the building, edit the edit zone, the action zones. Here we go. There's our list. We have this item. Delete, and it's gone. Then we come in here and we go, okay, I want to add one. I put this in here, click add animation, and it's back. There we go. Yay, full round trip. And the crowd goes wild. Okay, we completed it. Okay, well, it's lunchtime here, and it's a Friday, and I'm getting the restless with time to start a weekend. So, so I'm going to call it a day on this, and we had a good session. We checked out cleaned up after our, well, kind of our weeks of stuff. This is what we're working on this week. A couple different pieces. We did the shadows. They're all working nice now. We did a lot of cleanup. We did some fog. We did the scene change. We added a lot of stuff today. Did a lot of pieces and added a lot of cool quality things. So, and then that part there, we now can add and remove which action we want the avatar to be able to perform when they walk into that zone. Next week we'll start on telling it and assigning it and actually making it work when we want it to. And yeah, we'll do some certain things with that. Maybe we've got a lot of cool stuff. So thank you for watching, and have a great weekend, and I will see you again real soon.